When you both stop contacting each other, most people think nothing is happening. No calls, no messages, no notifications lighting up the screen. It looks quiet on the outside. Though let me tell you something real. Silence is never empty. Silence is loud. Silence is where the real psychological battle begins. Because when the messages stop, the mind does not. You wake up and the first instinct is still there. You check your phone, not because you're weak, but because you're human. And she's doing the same thing. Maybe not every minute, maybe not dramatically, but curiosity lives in silence. And curiosity is powerful. When communication ends, imagination takes over. And imagination is far more intense than reality ever was. Now she's wondering, why hasn't he texted? Is he busy? Is he upset? Is he talking to someone else? Did he finally move on? I did. And on your side, the same storm is happening. You're thinking, does she miss me? Is she waiting for me to reach out? Is she testing me? This is what most people don't understand. Silence creates questions, and questions create emotional tension. Before, when you were always texting, everything was predictable. She knew when you would reply, she knew you'd call, she knew you'd show up. Predictability feels safe, but it's not always attractive. The moment that pattern breaks, the emotional energy shifts. Silence removes certainty. And when certainty disappears, attention increases. Let's talk about something honest. When you were constantly available, your presence felt normal. But the moment you stop, your absence feels different. It creates space, and in that space, her mind begins to fill in the blanks. That's the battlefield. Not WhatsApp, not Instagram, the mind. See, female psychology is deeply emotional, but also deeply intuitive. When a man suddenly becomes silent, it disrupts the emotional rhythm. It forces her to think instead of react. And thinking leads to remembering. She remembers the jokes, the late-night conversations, the way you made her feel understood. Silence has a strange way of highlighting what noise once hid. But here's the key. This is not about playing games. It's about understanding emotional dynamics. It's about understanding emotional dynamics. If you panic during silence, you lose power. If you chase during silence, you confirm fear. But if you remain calm during silence, you create intrigue. There's a difference between silent strength and silent desperation. One builds attraction, the other builds anxiety. When you don't immediately react, when you don't double text, when you don't post things just to get attention, you communicate something without saying a word. You communicate emotional control, and emotional control is magnetic. Now let's be clear. Silence doesn't mean she doesn't care. Sometimes silence means she's waiting to see what you do. Sometimes it's pride. Sometimes it's confusion. Sometimes it's her protecting herself. But silence always carries meaning. You have to understand when two people stop contacting each other, it becomes a test of internal stability. Who can handle uncertainty better? Who can manage emotions without seeking validation? Who can sit in the unknown without collapsing? That's the real game. Most people lose here because they can't sit still. They need reassurance. They need immediate answers. They need proof. But attraction often grows in mystery, not in constant reassurance. Silence gives you a chance to observe yourself too. Why does it bother you? Is it attachment, ego, fear of losing control? When you understand your own reaction to silence, you become stronger. Not just in this situation, but in every relationship moving forward. And here's something powerful. The person who controls their emotions during silence controls the energy of the situation. Because while others react, you reflect. While others panic, you position. While others chase, you choose. Silence is uncomfortable, but growth is always uncomfortable. The truth is, when you stop chasing, you stop being predictable. And when you stop being predictable, you become unforgettable. Silence isn't the end of connection. It's the moment the real psychological game begins. Now let's go deeper, because when silence enters the picture, something else quietly shifts. The power dynamic. Most relationships operate on patterns. One person texts first. One person plans more. One person apologizes quicker. One person chases harder. And over time, without even realizing it, a balance of power forms. Not in a toxic way, necessarily, but in an energetic way. Someone invests slightly more, someone leans slightly less, and when both of you suddenly stop contacting each other, that pattern breaks. That's when the power shift begins. If you were always the one reaching out, always initiating, always making sure the connection stayed alive, your absence will feel different. Not because you disappeared physically, but because you removed your energy from the dynamic. And energy is what fuels attachment. See, people don't always value what is constantly available. When something becomes predictable, it becomes comfortable. And comfort, while beautiful in stable love, can sometimes reduce urgency in fragile connections. The moment you pull back, you introduce scarcity, and scarcity increases perceived value. It's human psychology. When access decreases, attention increases. When effort is no longer guaranteed, curiosity grows. She may not admit it. She may not show it publicly, but internally she notices the shift. Why is he so quiet? He used to check on me. Did something change? Did I lose him? That internal questioning is the power recalibrating. Now, understand this clearly. Power is not about dominance. It's not about manipulation. It's about emotional leverage. It's about who feels more dependent on the interaction. When you were always available, she felt secure that you'd be there. But when you stop overextending, when you stop proving, when you stop overgiving, you subtly communicate that your world does not revolve around her. And that changes everything because confidence is not loud. Confidence is controlled availability. A man who has options with his time, his focus, his energy, he is naturally more attractive than a man who waits by his phone. When you shift your attention back to your goals, your growth, your peace, you automatically rebalance the scale. And here's the interesting part. The person who feels the shift first often feels the loss of control first. If she was used to you chasing, she now has to decide whether she steps forward or lets distance grow. That decision creates tension, and tension creates awareness. Before she didn't have to think about losing you, now she does. But let me say something important. This only works if the silence is genuine. If you're pretending to be detached while obsessing internally, your energy still feels needy. People sense that. Real power comes from actual emotional grounding. When you truly accept that you'll be okay either way, whether she reaches out or not, you move differently. You're calmer, you're less reactive, you don't jump when the phone buzzes, you don't stalk her online activity. You're stable, and stability is rare. Female psychologists respond strongly to emotional strength, not coldness, not arrogance. Strength, the kind that says, I value you, but I also value myself. When you remove desperation, you remove pressure. And when pressure disappears, attraction has space to breathe. Think about it. If she feels like you need her to respond in order to feel okay, that creates emotional weight. But if she feels like you're choosing her, not clinging to her, that creates desire. Choice feels better than obligation. This is why absence, when handled correctly, can increase respect because respect grows when someone sees that you have boundaries, that you won't overextend endlessly, that your time and energy are not unlimited resources. And here's where it gets powerful. When you stop overinvesting, you give her room to invest. Sometimes she hasn't stepped forward simply because you never stepped back. Sometimes she hasn't shown effort because you've been carrying the emotional load alone. Silence forces both people to reveal their level of interest. If she values the connection, she will feel the gap. If she doesn't, you've saved yourself time and emotional exhaustion. Either way, you win clarity. But remember, the goal isn't to win her. The goal is to win yourself back, to return to a position where you are centered, not chasing validation. When you both stop contacting each other, it's not about who texts first, it's about who remains internally strong when the dynamic shifts, because the one who can walk away from overgiving without anger, without bitterness, without drama, that's the one who holds real power. Power shifts the moment you stop proving your worth and start recognizing it. And when your absence speaks louder than your presence ever did, the balance is officially changed. Now let's talk about something most people don't want to admit, ego. Because when you is stop contacting each other, it's rarely just about being busy. It's rarely just about needing space. Most of the time, there's a silent war happening between ego and emotions, and that war is intense. She might miss you, she might think about you at night, she might replay conversations in her head, but pride whispers, don't text first. Pride says, if he cares, he'll reach out. Pride protects the heart from feeling exposed. And if we're being honest, you're fighting the same battle. You want to message her. You type something out, then delete it. You tell yourself, why should I always be the one? You think, if she misses me, she can text too. That's ego stepping in to guard your vulnerability. So now it's not just silence. It's two hearts waiting and two egos blocking the door. Here's what you need to understand about female psychology in this moment. When emotions are involved, women often test emotional stability through distance. Not always intentionally, sometimes it's subconscious. Distance becomes a way to measure depth. If I stop reaching out, will he fight for me? If I go quiet, will he notice? If I call back, does he step forward? It's not always manipulation. Sometimes it's insecurity mixed with pride. It's not always manipulation. Sometimes it's fear of being the one who cares more. And fear of caring more is powerful. No one wants to feel like they're more invested. No one wants to feel replaceable. So instead of risking vulnerability, both people stay silent, hoping the other breaks first. That's the ego versus emotions battle. Emotions say, I miss him. Ego says, stay quiet. Emotions say, text her. Ego says, wait. Now here's the key. The person who reacts emotionally without control often loses leverage, but the person who suppresses emotions completely becomes cold and disconnected. So, what's the balance? Emotional discipline. Discipline not mean pretending you don't care. It means caring without collapsing. It means missing someone without losing your composure. It means feeling deeply but acting wisely. When you instantly break silence out of anxiety, you communicate something subtle, I can't handle distance. And when someone feels that, the dynamic shifts again. Well, when you remain steady, not playing games, not posting for attention, not sending indirect messages, you show strength. You show that your feelings don't control you, and that's attractive. She starts wondering, why is he so calm? Why isn't he reacting? Did he emotionally detach? And sometimes that curiosity turns into her reaching out. Not because you forced it, but because emotional tension reached a point where pride couldn't hold anymore. Let's be real though, sometimes she won't reach out. Sometimes her ego wins, sometimes sometimes yours does. And two people who cared end up strangers because neither wanted to be vulnerable first. That's the tragedy of pride. But here's where maturity separates you from the crowd. You have to ask yourself, if I reach out, is it from strength or from fear? If you text because you genuinely want clarity, peace, or honest communication, that's strength. But if you text because the silence is suffocating your ego, that's weakness. Intent matters. Female psychology respects emotional courage, not desperation courage. There's a difference between I need you to respond so I feel okay and I value this connection and I am mature enough to express that. When ego dominates, both people lose. When emotional maturity leads, clarity wins, whether that clarity brings reconciliation or closure. And here's something powerful to remember. Silence reveals who is acting from love and who is acting from pride. If she truly values you, distance will eventually feel heavier than ego. If you truly value her, you'll either stand firm in your peace or communicate without fear of looking weak because vulnerability is not weakness. It's only weakness when it's desperate. The real strength in this phase isn't about waiting longer. It's about understanding your emotional triggers. It's about recognizing when your pride is protecting you and when it's sabotaging you. When you both stop contacting each other, it's not just a pause in conversation. It's a test of emotional intelligence. Who can manage feelings without losing dignity? Who can sit with discomfort without reacting impulsively? Who can separate ego from genuine connection? That's the real war happening behind the scenes, and the one who masters their ego without denying their emotions, that's the one who wins regardless of who texts first, because sometimes she's not silent because she doesn't care. She's silent to see if you do. Now here's where everything starts to separate the emotionally reactive from the emotionally powerful. Because when silence stretches on, when ego battles settle, when the power shift stabilizes, something unexpected can happen. Detachment, and I don't mean coldness. I don't mean pretending you never cared. I mean emotional balance, the kind where you stop clinging to an outcome. There's something magnetic about a person who is okay either way. When you stop obsessing over whether she'll text, when you stop checking her last scene, when you stop building scenarios in your head, your energy changes, and energy always speaks louder than words. Neediness repels, stability attracts. Female psychology is deeply responsive to emotional presence. When a man is overly attached to a result, needing her response, needing reassurance, needing validation, it creates subtle pressure, and pressure suffocates attraction. And you detach from desperation, something shifts. You start waking up focused on your own life again. You pour into your goals. You hit the gym not to make her jealous, but to discipline your mind. You improve your finances. You reconnect with friends. You build yourself. And here's the part people don't talk about. When you genuinely improve, your confidence becomes effortless. You're no longer trying to prove anything. You're becoming something. Detachment isn't about ignoring her. It's about no longer making her the center of your emotional stability. And that's powerful, not because you're playing hard to get, but because you've shifted your focus to self-respect. Self-respect is attractive. When you are constantly available, constantly adjusting your mood based on her replies, you unconsciously gave away emotional authority. But when you regain control of your time and energy, you signal independence. And independence creates desire. Let me explain something important. Women are drawn to emotional security, not just security and commitment, security and stability. A man who can handle silence without falling apart communicates strength. If she sees that your happiness depends on her responses, it feels heavy. But if she sees that you value her while still valuing yourself, it feels safe. Safety and attraction coexist when there's balance. And here's the irony. The moment you truly detach from needing her validation is often the moment she feels your absence the strongest. Because now your silence isn't strategic, it's natural. You're not waiting by the phone, you're building your life. You're not posting stories hoping she watches. You're living experiences whether she does or not. That authenticity shifts everything. Toy action space allows emotions to breathe. When you stop forcing interaction, you give her room to feel like sometimes constant communication numbs emotion, but distance can amplify it. She may start remembering your calmness, your humor, your leadership, your presence. And now because you're not overextending, those memories carry more weight. But here's the truth you must accept. Detachment also prepares you for the possibility that she may not return. Snorts. And that's okay because if your growth only depends on her coming back, you're still attached to the outcome. Real detachment says, I prefer you, but I don't need you to survive. That mindset is rare. Most people operate from fear of loss. But when you operate from abundance, knowing you can build, improve, and attract again, your energy becomes calm. Calm is attractive. You speak slower. You react less. You think clearer. You're not easily shaken by delayed replies or social media activity. And when she eventually reaches out, whether it's days or weeks later, she'll feel the difference. You won't sound desperate. You won't overcompensate. You'll be grounded. Grounded men are unforgettable. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop chasing. It means you stop trying to control what's outside of you and start mastering what's within you. And when you master yourself, you become naturally attractive again, not just to her, but to life. Because the less desperate you become, the more desirable you appear. Now, this is where the real transformation happens. Because silence, power shifts, ego battles, and detachment all lead to one critical question. What are you doing during the quiet? Most people waste the silence. They sit in it. They scroll, they overthink, they replay old conversations. They imagine scenarios that haven't happened. They make the other person the center of their manta-like world. But the ones who win, they build with. When you both stop contacting each other, you're handed a gift. It may not feel like a gift at first. It feels like rejection. It feels like uncertainty. It feels like loss. But hidden inside that discomfort is opportunity. Like opportunity to upgrade. Think about it. When you were constantly talking, constantly emotionally engaged, how much time did you truly invest in yourself? How much energy went into thinking about her mood, her replies, her behavior? Now that energy is free, and what you do with it determines everything. You can either let silence shrink you or let it sharpen you. Growth during silence is powerful because it's private. No applause, no validation, no guarantee she's watching. You're not improving to impress. You're improving to elevate. That's different. When a man channels emotional frustration into discipline, he becomes dangerous in the best way. He hits the gym not to post a transformation picture, but to train his mind to handle pain. He works longer hours not to distract himself, but to expand his purpose. He reads, learns, reflects, and strengthens internally. And here's the psychological truth. Women respect progress. Not loud progress, not arrogant progress. If she sees that during the time apart, you became calmer, fitter, more focused, more driven, that speaks volumes. It tells her you don't crumble under pressure. It tells her you use adversity as fuel. That's attractive on a deep level. But here's the